guys, how's it going? Kevin Cleary here with a knife video for you. Today we're taking a look at a knife from Tuya Knives. This is the Tuya Knives Kingsman, sort of their big model, I think, for 2019. It's the one they've been giving quite a bit of attention to. And there's a bit of a story behind this. Very quickly, I'll just say that I wanted to check this out at Blade, didn't get a chance to, so I was talking with Dave Warren after and ended up picking up this and another Tuya knife. And I'm pretty happy that I did because I've been enjoying them quite a bit. Now, that's the other thing that I want to say. By the way, Dave's a great guy, and I would definitely recommend you go follow Tuya Knives on Facebook as well as check out their website. Give them a follow on Instagram. Definitely worth doing. But let me get back to the knife itself. The other thing that I want to say about this knife is I find myself carrying it an awful lot because I find it delivers a lot of features that I enjoy in a package that maybe you wouldn't expect to see them on. So one, this is not a crazy expensive knife. I think the retail on this is like 250 bucks, but it has a lot of features and feel that, just make it feel like an even more expensive knife. It really does. The other thing about this knife is it's way lighter and slimmer and easier to carry than I feel like it should be given just what it is, okay? So let me give you a rundown on size and weight, and we'll touch on materials a little bit, even though we're getting ahead of ourselves, just so I can kind of make that point. So we've got 8 3/8 inches overall. So it's a pretty big knife. It's definitely a full-size knife, right in my wheelhouse. 3 9/16 on the blade, 4 13/16 on the handle, 3.5 inches of grip area, which is a little small, but I feel like if you had really big hands and your pinky sort of landed back here, that is on this portion of the handle, it would still be fine. So I have fairly large hands and my fingers fit in there just fine. But if you had even bigger hands than I did, I think you'd still be okay with this knife. And here's the big thing about this. So, oh, by the way, just take a look at the thickness on that blade stock and the 3D contouring on the carbon fiber and titanium. And those things are generally things I associate with a bit of a heavier, chunkier knife. And in hand, it has that very satisfying sort of hand-filling, confidence-inspiring feel, but it only weighs 3.5 ounces. So it's super, super easy to carry. And for that reason, maybe it's because it's summertime and so I'm wearing lighter clothes and stuff, but I find myself carrying this knife a lot just because it's sort of light and slim and easy to carry, but it's also really nice and high end and has great action and a big thick blade stock and a lot of cool features that I enjoy. That normally I would be carrying, a 5 or 6 ounce knife that would have those features. So to have them all in like 3.5 ounces is pretty comfortable for me. Let's go ahead now and start talking about the blade a little bit. Now that I've kind of gotten the place that this sits for me, and the reason I find myself carrying it a lot is just because it seems to deliver a lot in a very small, easy to carry package. So. First thing, let's touch on this blade. Satin finish, M390 steel. We've got a bit of a multi-step fuller here. Interesting compound grind, which I do like quite a bit. Now, there's a couple things I have to say about this that I think are important to note, okay? First off, this is pretty thick blade stock, okay? And so that means that this grind here is pretty abrupt, okay? So the V shape on this knife is not like this, it's gonna be more like this. All right, so you can think about what that implies you can think of the consequences of that as a cutting tool. That means this is not gonna be the greatest slicer out there. But what they've done is made it very thin behind the edge. So in terms of an EDC cutting tool, it performs really well. It's going to have limitations. Like, for example, this is not going to be the best for, slicing up apples for your kids or cutting up a carrot or something for your supper. I don't really use my EDC very often for that kind of thing anyway. So to me, that's not a huge issue. And I do find some extra utility and some extra confidence in that thicker blade stock. So I enjoy that thick blade stock quite a bit, and I'm happy to have that in a package that still cuts well, but maybe isn't the best slicer, okay? So that's the one limitation I would put on this blade. Otherwise, I mean, the steel, the shape, the finish, everything else about it, even its cutting performance in regular EDC tests. If you're cutting up a cardboard box, this works fantastic. If you're, carving on a bit of wood, again, it works fantastic because it's very thin behind the edge, so it cuts into material quite nicely. Again, the only limitation is going to be, I don't know, like an apple or a potato, which I don't find myself cutting all that often. So that's my discussion on the blade, and I do like this blade quite a bit. In fact, I like it um, maybe more than I even thought that I would. Like I kind of knew, hey, I like this design; it's pretty cool looking. But now that I've had it and been able to spend some time with it, it really has grown on me even more because I love just the grind and the overall appearance of this blade. I'm really a fan. So now let's move on to the action. This is, of course, a titanium frame lock. I guess it's kind of a bolsterish lock, you could say, depending on whether you call this an inlay or a scale or what, but we'll call it a frame lock for maybe lack of a better description. Very easy to access that lock bar, really dialed in detent. Now this does have a little bit of a hook to it, but it's not so bad. And certainly this is a knife that if you're, fidgeting with it a lot, it doesn't make you uncomfortable, which, for example, some maybe a Hinderer or certain ZTs would be because, they're just not, this is pretty nicely contoured to your finger. So even though there is a bit of an up hook there, most of the pressure is applied here to this part of my finger. So very comfortable flipper tab, nicely dialed in detent, great smooth action. Now I've got to comment here just a little bit. So I've had a couple of other Tuya knives. I've got another one right here, the Thorax, and it's nice. Okay, it's nice, but the action on this is just a little more refined, just a little cleaner. And maybe you can comment in the comments down below. You can speak to the Hive. I didn't handle a Hive. I suspect it had an action that was maybe a little nicer than some of the other Tuya knives, but I don't know that for sure. I do know that this one feels a little smoother and a little more refined than some of the Tuya knives I've handled before. So in terms of, lockup deployment and overall action, I'm pretty impressed by it. It's smooth, it's solid, okay, all the things that you would expect from a knife at this price point, and perhaps even a little bit more. It's a really, really enjoyable knife to open and close. They've got the action very much dialed in here. Okay, so next thing, what about the construction? So of course, titanium frame lock, 3D machining, which is really, really nice. We don't have any internal milling here. We've got a small backspacer. The lanyard hole is integrated into that backspacer in a way that's pretty unobtrusive, and I do like that. Single position milled titanium clip, which works very, very well. Now, some have complained that the clip is lower on the handle, but that actually works really, really well. One, I think it kind of gets the clip to land in the crease of your hand there, so it makes it so there's no way that it's a hot spot, where if it was up here, I feel like the palm of my hand, well, this portion of the palm of my hand would be kind of sitting right on it. As it sits there now, it just kind of lands in the crease, and I'm sure that was the idea behind that clip placement. Kind of reminds me of the Liangma Remedy. People complained about that clip placement being the opposite way. It was higher up, but it did the same thing. It kind of landed in the fold of your hand. Now, we do have this very nice marbled carbon fiber inlay, which is very nice, but, okay, by the way, sort of I don't know if you call this a bubble pattern or exactly what this story is with this. I find it works well with the knife and it adds a little bit of detail. I don't think everyone is going to love it, but that's okay. Every knife is not for everyone. I will say this though. So here's the carbon fiber. Looks pretty good, especially on this side. But if you turn it over here, it still looks nice, but you can kind of see right in this area there are a few voids in this carbon fiber that are fairly noticeable. I think even on camera you can see those pretty easily. That is really too bad. I feel like the carbon fiber, the marbled carbon fiber, was kind of a key feature to this knife. It was a selling point. It was one of the things that made it that much more impressive. And the fact that there's some pretty noticeable voids do take something away from that. Now, I will say this, it's not crazy noticeable. Like you really have to be looking. I've carried this, I've handed it to people and had them use it. I've said, hey, what do you think of this knife? And they just look at it and go, hey, this is a really nice knife. They don't even notice. Even those who kind of know what carbon fiber is supposed to look like don't really notice. But under close examination, as you can see, I don't think there's so much on this side. Maybe there is. Yeah, there's even a little void on, yeah, you can see it right there. You can see it kind of right across here. Okay, so that's a little bit of a disappointment. Luckily, or maybe thankfully, the show side looks really, really good, but there are those little voids in the other side, which is kind of a disappointment. And I've thought about, and maybe some of you guys who are, really into modding and stuff, I've thought about seeing about doing like an epoxy repair back here, but I don't know. I just don't think it's worth it. Anyway, that's my only complaint on the construction and the materials is there's some voids in that carbon fiber. Hopefully no one else has that issue with theirs, and mine's just kind of a one-off random thing. Um, but that's a little bit of a disappointment, especially given the fact that that's one of the cool features about this knife. Now we've gone over the construction and the materials. Let's talk a little bit ergonomics. And I will say, from a comfort standpoint, this knife is really, really good. So always a knife that's contoured like this is going to be, I mean, I'm sure there's one out there somewhere that's not, but nearly always when you see this nicely contoured handle, it's going to be a little more comfortable. In a saber grip or a hammer grip, this knife is really, really good. Reverse grip, there's not really enough room for my full palm here, but I don't know. I don't anticipate ever using a knife in that grip. I never have before. The only time, anyway, yeah, I don't really care about that. I find this knife quite comfortable in the grips that I regularly use, and I'm pretty impressed with that. And part of that we've already talked a little bit about is the clip placement there. It kind of lands in a nice void there when I close my hand, which makes it not noticeable, which is what I like to see. Okay, now moving on to some comparisons. This is a knife that's hard to find some comparisons for. I will throw in the Tuya Knives Thorax really quickly here. Let's move this down out of the way. So there are a number of Tuya knives out there. There's a lot of nice models. This happens to be one of the ones that I like especially. Okay, obviously quite a bit bigger and heavier, but it's also quite a bit cheaper. So this might be something you're interested in. Want to throw in a knife here that we haven't seen on the channel before. This is the new Rake. Let's turn it over here so you can see M875. Now this is a titanium frame lock from Rake Knives, which I don't know. I kind of expected it to happen because Rake and Real Steel are made by the same company, Senrin Mu, and they've done lots of titanium frame locks before. So I kind of expected Rake to eventually come out with one, and this is their new model. I kind of like it. They've also done some of their older models in that I think either I have a first impressions video out already that you may have seen on that, or I have one coming out pretty soon. Let's pull in a Para 2 here. Of course, Para 2 is a knife that everyone's kind of familiar with. We all love it a whole lot. And, kind of gives you an idea of where this lands in terms of size. And I think now you can see, so when I close this knife down and I put it beside the Para, you can see why I enjoy carrying this. It's just very, very small and doesn't take up a lot of space in your pocket, but delivers quite an effective cutting tool, which I rather enjoy. What else have we got here? So this is the Bestech Bison. I think it's worth bringing in here because of the fact that, both of these are overseas brands. And this serves to make the point that I was making a little bit ago, where the action on this and just the attention to detail is very, very clean, very dialed in. The Bison is not quite in the same category. The Bison is good. It's got a nice snappy action. It's very enjoyable. But if you flip these two side by side, you can really notice that there's a significant difference in the two of them. So that's what I keep saying about the fact that this is offering some pretty premium, a very premium feel. And I mean, it's a fairly premium price tag, but not as much as some that you would be able to compare this to pretty well. Okay, so what's my overall conclusion here? Look, I think this knife is pretty nice. It has a good fidget factor. Okay, very effective as an EDC cutting tool. Obviously, if you're the guy that cuts up a lot of apples or something with your EDC knife, this is probably not the knife for you. But I really am drawn to that heavy-duty blade. I like the utility of it. I like the competence of it. Of course, I like that compound grind. So there's a lot that really appeals to me in this knife. I think it's a really, really nice EDC. Offers a lot of high-end feel and features at a, not super budget price, but at a reasonable price. And sort of as a high-end EDC, I think this is a really, really good offering. So there you go, guys. That's my thoughts on the Tuya Knives Kingsman. The big thing here that puts a bit of damper on my enthusiasm is the voids in the carbon fiber. Kind of wish they weren't there, but even in my regular use, I don't really notice it. But it's important that it is something that is a problem. Um, Hopefully that's again not the case with most of them. So there you go. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Don't forget to check the links down below. I will put a link to White Mountain Knives. I think they may be stocking some Tuya stuff at some point. And of course there'll be a link to the Tuya Knives Facebook page and the Tuya Knives website. Thanks a lot, Dave, for accommodating this knife getting to me. Really, really impressed with it. Thanks for watching, guys. We will talk to you soon.